hours before Queen Elizabeth's death, a beautiful double rainbow appeared over Buckingham Palace.
The crowds gathered, and the most significant change, of course, the flagpole above Buckingham Palace, where the Union flag has now been lowered.
As people gathered outside the gates to await news about the monarch's condition, they witnessed the phenomenon, which appeared after dark clouds and rainfall turned into bursts of sunshine, many calling it a sign of good news to come, while others think it symbolizes Her Majesty crossing the Rainbow Bridge. But not long after that stunning sky, Buckingham Palace revealed the Queen had died, surrounded by family. Quote, "The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow." The British monarch is survived by her 4 kids, Charles, Andrew, Anne, and Edward, along with 8 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren.
After word spread that Queen Elizabeth was gravely ill, confirmation she had passed away at Balmoral Castle in Scotland with some of the royal family at her bedside. Tonight, sorrow and reflection, looking back through many years at the loss of a woman who was mother and monarch, who stood as a symbol of integrity and service. This is a live shot at Buckingham Palace, a stream of people paying their respects with flowers, cards, or just a moment of silence. Our coverage spans the Queen's life, and we begin with Mark Burrows on how today unfolded.
Doing her duty until the end. The Queen, frail, 2 days ago at Balmoral, Scotland. It was to be the final photo, greeting the new Prime Minister. Then last night, suddenly, the grim indication from the palace she was fading.
The Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral.
Charles, Camilla and Princess Anne were already in Scotland and raced to her bedside. Prince William at the wheel with the Queen's sons, Edward and Andrew, arrived just after she died. And Harry also missed the chance to say his final goodbye. The Duchess of Cambridge stayed in London to tell the children about their great-grandmother in person.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The Palace has just issued this statement. It says the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon.
Back in London, the death notice posted on the gates of Buckingham Palace. It read simply, "The Queen died peacefully." The moment a country knew was near, that still tore into the hearts of millions. An estimated 60 million in the UK alone have never known life without her.
It's just a sad day for us all today. We've all known just one Queen. She's the person we've always looked up to. So it's just a sad day. It's a very, very sad day.
My mom called me earlier. She was crying on the phone because the Queen has been a huge part of her life and everyone's life. We've all grown up with her, so yeah, very sad indeed.
Never been a royalist, so I don't know why I've been so affected by it. I literally only found out a few minutes ago, and before it happened, I didn't think I would be, but I really am, and I realise.
70 years important, the longest reign of any monarch, the greatest figure in modern British history. She saw them all. 13 US presidents, 16 Australian prime ministers, 15 UK PMs.
I have had quite a lot of prime ministers, starting with Winston, and some stayed longer than others.
And on her death, multiplying by the hour, thousands outside the palace with an anthem, her anthem.
the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country Britain is the great country it is today.
Marcus.
Times we've never had both head of government and head of state changing. It will be a novelty, therefore, for both of them. And isn't it important that the head of government, the Prime Minister, comes to meet the King, the head of the state? And it will be significant for both of them individually, testing each other out, and a very significant marker for the kind of country we are. Yes, Britain is a democracy, but yes, Britain is a monarchy. And how the democratic history works out with the monarchical institution will be fascinating to watch. Those two key players. It's going to be a lot of exciting issues of the Crown will be coming up in years to come.
And Dominic, just reflecting back on the Queen's time, and one of the ladies that Becky was talking to in the crowd just there was talking about how the Queen always modernised, and we saw that yesterday with the announcement of her passing on Twitter, but also the notice on the palace here down at Buckingham Palace. You get a sense perhaps that that's one of the reasons that she's continued to be held fondly by people, that she's kept up with the times despite her age.
Yeah, she's managed to do both. She's managed to remain constant and that source of stability and continuity, but she's also moved with the times. As you say, she's sort of moved onto social media. The monarchy has modernised under her stewardship, but also with the advice of courtiers as well. And, you know, she was able to loosen up with those appearances with James Bond and Paddington Bear as well.
The House of Commons has announced that MPs will get a chance to pay their public tributes to the Queen, who passed away yesterday. This will be led by Liz Truss. Now, we got a flavour of what she might say yesterday when she spoke on the steps of Downing Street. She talked then about the Queen being the rock on which modern Britain was built, who led the country with dignity and grace for 70 years. But what's interesting about the tributes that will be paid in the House of Commons and actually simultaneously in the House of Lords is that there are many, many people who will have deep and enduring memories of the Queen, not least former Prime Ministers. We might even be hearing from Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, until Tuesday lunchtime when he saw her as well. He's talked about yesterday being our country's saddest day and the wave of grief rolling across the world. We could also hear from Theresa May, and she was saying many of the things that you were just reflecting with Dominic Waghorn about how audiences with the Queen were about talking with somebody who was immensely knowledgeable. And Theresa May identified with the Queen in the sense that she saw in her someone who did her homework, did her red boxes, read her papers, knew what was going on, and brought that, as well as her tremendous experience of all of those years of her reign, and her personal relationships with all those world leaders, to bear in those conversations. Audiences, Theresa May was saying earlier, too formal a word for the conversation, in a moment would have that was valuable, not least because in Theresa May's eyes important that it would never leak or reach public ears.
Liz Truss will have the first meeting in person with her successor later. King Charles III will meet Liz Truss in person. They spoke last night, of course, by telephone shortly after Liz Truss gave this address on the steps of Downing Street. These are not two figures that don't know each other. They have had meetings, private meetings, going back all the time to when Liz Truss was a cabinet minister in David Cameron's government. There are records of the meeting as far back as 2014, so they are not unfamiliar with one another, but today's meeting will be one of very special significance.
All those years of wisdom and compassion, we've been so lucky.
Her work ethic, her strong faith, her leadership, there wasn't anything Her Majesty couldn't do.
There was a courtesy and a humanity and a kindness that I'll remember forever.
It was a life of public service and duty. Committed to her country.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, I pray that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.
And her Commonwealth.
I feel enormously proud of what the Commonwealth has achieved.